I'm 35, divorced, and live alone in a quiet part of town. After my divorce 2 years ago, I bought a fixer-upper with the idea of turning it into a cozy, modern space just for me. I work from home and like my space, but the cost of living has been creeping up. So, 6 months ago, I converted the upstairs into a small studio with a private entrance and listed it for rent. I wasn't expecting much, just someone responsible, quiet, and not sketchy. After a few weird interviews, I met Marcus. He was 23, a grad student, polite to the point of awkwardness, clean-shaven, soft-spoken. Said he was studying behavioral psychology. What sold me was how respectful he was, didn't interrupt, didn't overshare, and didn't try to act overly friendly. Just answered every question and asked a few in return. He didn't even blink when I told him I wanted to do a background check. He passed it without issue. The first month, everything went smoothly. I barely heard a sound. He always paid on time. Didn't leave trash out. No loud guests. He even texted if a package arrived for me by mistake. The only strange thing, if I'm being honest, was how normal he was. Too normal. Like someone performing the idea of a normal guy instead of just being one. But I let that slide. I've been burned before by overthinking things, so I pushed that voice in my head down. Then the second month rolled around. That's when things started to get odd. It started small. A few mornings in a row, I noticed the back gate, one I never use, was unlatched. Not wide open, not damaged, just open enough. I thought maybe a delivery guy left it that way, or a raccoon nudged it loose. But then it kept happening. 5 days in a row. One night, I decided to stay up and keep an eye on things. I set up near the kitchen window where I had a clear view of the backyard. Nothing. Not even a cat. I waited until nearly 3 a.m. before finally giving up and going to bed. The next morning, gate was unlatched again. It gave me a chill. But I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I changed the padlock and didn't mention it to Marcus. About a week later, I was upstairs fixing a leaky bathroom faucet while Marcus was at school. I noticed something strange near the door to his unit. A small metal latch had been added on the inside, like one you'd find in a motel. One I definitely hadn't installed. It struck me as odd. Not because he added it, he had the right to lock his space, but because of how clean and deliberate it looked. The screws were perfectly aligned. There wasn't a single wood splinter out of place. I don't know how to explain it, but it looked like something he'd practiced doing, somewhere else. I told myself I was being paranoid again. But I couldn't shake it. That same evening, I heard him come home. He always walked heavily up the stairs, but this time he didn't go straight into his room. He lingered at the top of the landing. I could hear the faint creak of the wood as he stood there. Not moving. Just standing. Then, I heard the soft sound of a phone camera. Just one click. Then silence. And then the sound of his door unlocking, the latch flipping, and the door shutting behind him. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. My heart was pounding. I didn't have a camera upstairs. Nothing to prove it. But in that moment, I was certain of one thing. Marcus had just taken a photo of something. In my house. And I had no idea why. The next morning, I woke up feeling strange. It's hard to describe. Not sick exactly, just off. My mouth was dry, my head fuzzy, like I'd taken cold medicine the night before and couldn't quite shake the fog. I checked my phone, no missed calls, no texts, nothing unusual. Except for the time. It was almost noon. I never sleep that late. Ever. I'm one of those people who wakes up at 7 a.m., even on weekends, no alarm needed. But somehow, I'd slept through the entire morning. I got up and looked around the house. Everything looked normal. The front door was locked. The windows were closed. But the living room curtain, just the one, was pulled slightly to the side. Like someone had peeked out. Or peeked in. That's when the paranoia kicked in. I went to my kitchen cabinet where I keep my little notebook of passwords, just to check. I know it's dumb, but I don't store them digitally, too many horror stories about hacks. When I opened the drawer, the notebook was gone. I froze. I tore through the entire cabinet, every drawer, the junk basket on the fridge, nothing. That little red notebook, the one I always kept tucked away in the same drawer for 2 years, was just gone. I tried to stay calm. I told myself maybe I moved it. Maybe I took it to my office and forgot. So I went into my office and found it on the desk. Except I hadn't used that desk in over a week. And the notebook wasn't on the desk. It was open. Sitting right in the middle of the surface, flipped to the exact page with my bank login and email password. It felt like a trap. Like someone wanted me to see that they'd been in my things. I looked at the camera in the corner, my cheap little $30 plug-in webcam I never really used. I suddenly remembered something. the last time I used it, I'd left it plugged in. Recording. Not for safety or anything, just to do a quick video call with my cousin. I forgot to unplug it afterward. I opened my laptop. The software had saved a file. One long video. I clicked play and scrolled through. At around 3:41 a.m., the screen went black. Just black. Not fuzzy. Not frozen. It had been manually shut off. The file picked up again at 6:13 a.m., as if someone had restarted the camera right before I woke up. My hands were shaking. There's no doubt in my mind anymore. Someone had been in my home that night. And the only other person with access to the locks was Marcus. After I saw that camera footage, well, the lack of it, I told myself I needed to be smart. I wasn't going to accuse Marcus of anything without proof. He was still paying rent, still polite, still acting completely normal. But I started locking my bedroom door at night. I hadn't done that since I moved in. A couple nights later, something happened that I still can't explain. I was brushing my teeth in the upstairs bathroom, the one right next to the studio apartment I rent to Marcus. It was about 10:30 p.m. The bathroom has one of those wide old mirrors, slightly warped from years of moisture, but good enough. I leaned down to rinse, eyes half shut from exhaustion. When I stood back up and looked at the mirror, I swear, for just a second, I saw two reflections behind me. One was mine. The other was standing farther back. Still. No face I could make out. Just a figure. I spun around so fast I knocked over the toothbrush holder. There was no one there. But the air felt wrong. Heavy. Charged. The way the room feels right after someone's been standing there too long. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my locked bedroom with my back against the door, holding a kitchen knife like an idiot. I didn't call the police. What would I say? Hi, I think my tenant may be drugging me and also there was a ghost in my mirror? Yeah, not happening. I told myself I was losing it. Stress, isolation, overthinking. But in the back of my mind, I kept circling the same questions. Why did Marcus install that lock inside his apartment so perfectly? Why had the gate been unlocked over and over again? Why had my webcam been turned off at exactly 3:41 a.m.? And why did Marcus ask me, the next morning, if I'd slept okay? He said it so casually, smiling like always. But there was something in his voice that didn't sit right. Like he already knew the answer. I started keeping notes. Every weird incident. Every time the gate was open, every sound I couldn't place, every morning I woke up groggy for no reason. I didn't know what I was going to do with them, just that I needed some record. Something to hold on to in case this spiral in my brain turned out to be something real. Then, one night around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps overhead. Now remember, Marcus's apartment is above mine. I usually don't hear much, he's quiet, respectful. But that night, the pacing was constant. Slow steps back and forth. Then stopping. Then pacing again. I tiptoed into the hallway and stood beneath the vent. The floorboards creaked every few seconds, always in the same pattern. Back and forth. 5 steps, pause. 5 steps, pause. It went on for 40 minutes. And then it stopped. No door, no sound of him getting into bed. Just silence. The next morning, I knocked on his door under the excuse that I needed to check the radiator in his bathroom. He hesitated, then let me in. Same clean space. Same neutral air freshener smell. Same nothing to see here energy. But while he was in the bathroom showing me the knob that sometimes rattled, I glanced at his desk. There was a folder. A plain blue file folder. No labels. But the top page had my name. Just my name, written in bold at the center of the page. I didn't dare touch it. I didn't even lean closer. I just froze. He turned around fast, like he'd been watching my reflection in the mirror. And he smiled. That tight-lipped, almost sympathetic smile people give you when they're pretending not to be judging you. I mumbled something about the radiator being fine and left. My hands didn't stop shaking for an hour. Later that evening, I looked through my drawers. That folder? The one with my name? I had one just like it. I used to use those for my old job, color-coded. And one of them went missing a few weeks ago. I'd assumed I'd misplaced it. But now? Now I'm wondering how many other things he's borrowed. How much of me is in that folder? I knew I was taking a risk. A big one. But after seeing that folder and the way Marcus smiled at me like we were in on some shared secret, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what was going on. 3 nights later, Marcus left around 6 p.m., said he had a late study group. I watched from the upstairs window as he got into his car and drove off. I waited 15 minutes, then climbed the stairs to his unit with the spare master key I'd held onto from before I gave him the place. My hands were sweating so bad the key slipped once before it turned. The moment I stepped in, I felt it. That stillness. The kind that tells you the room knows you're not supposed to be in it. I didn't have a plan. Just panic and adrenaline. I headed for the desk. Laptop, closed but not locked. I opened it and lifted the screen. And froze. His desktop wallpaper, his actual background image, was a photo of me. Standing in my kitchen. Wearing the old blue hoodie I only wear when I haven't showered. It was taken through the small side window above my sink. I looked at the timestamp in the corner. 1:17 a.m. There's no way he was invited inside at that hour. No way I was awake. I don't even remember what night that was. But he was close enough to get a clear shot. I clicked open the photos folder. Dozens, maybe hundreds, of images. All of me. From behind windows, through cracked doors, reflections in mirrors. One of me sleeping. He named the folders by month. February, observation. March, adjustments. One labeled April, exposure, had subfolders titled food, phone, and reaction. I couldn't breathe. He'd been documenting me. Not just watching, but studying me. And I didn't even get to the worst part yet. In his browser tabs, left open like he didn't even care, I saw this. How to slowly reduce melatonin response in adults. Effects of ambient noise on sleep paralysis. Subtle psychological manipulations for experimental conditioning. I backed away from the desk. Because suddenly, this wasn't just obsession. It was a project. And I was the subject. I didn't sleep that night. After what I found on Marcus's laptop, the folders, the images, the research, I locked myself in my room and pushed the dresser against the door. Every sound made me jump. I kept checking the windows. Checking the time. Checking the hallway. I didn't call the police. I wanted to. But what was I going to say? That I broke into my tenant's room and saw weird tabs open? That he's got pictures of me that he might have taken without permission? I needed something solid. So the next day, I bought a hidden camera. It looks like a plug-in air freshener. Cost me almost $200, but I didn't care. I set it up in the hallway just outside my bedroom, pointing at the stairs. Then I waited. 3 nights later, it happened. I reviewed the footage the next morning. At 2:43 a.m., Marcus came downstairs. Barefoot. Silent. He stood at the bottom of the stairs for exactly 3 minutes. Just stood there. Not moving. Not even looking at anything in particular. His eyes were open, but blank. It was like he was in some kind of trance. Then he turned, slowly, and walked into the kitchen. I skipped ahead in the footage. At 2:51 a.m., he returned. But this time, he was carrying something. A bowl. He placed it gently at the foot of the stairs, right outside my bedroom. Then he reached into his hoodie pocket and sprinkled something over it. The camera couldn't capture what it was, just a slight movement, a soft tapping sound. Then he whispered something. No volume. Just lips moving. And walked back upstairs. I stared at the screen, frozen. I went to the kitchen. I went to the stairs. There was nothing there anymore. He must have taken it back before I woke up. But I know what I saw. He was testing something. A behavior. A reaction. A trigger. And I realized. This wasn't just a project anymore. It was an experiment. And the trial run had already begun. I didn't plan to confront him. I really didn't. But when you've been living in fear, counting footsteps, locking every door like it'll actually save you, something inside you just snaps. It happened the next evening. He came home early. I was standing at the bottom of the stairs, holding the bowl I'd found behind the trash bin outside. The same one from the camera footage. There was residue inside, some powdery white dust still clinging to the corners. I didn't speak right away. I just held it up and looked him dead in the eyes. And Marcus? He smiled. Not nervous. Not caught. Calm. Like he'd been waiting for this. Then he said something I'll never forget. You weren't supposed to wake up. That's when I realized he wasn't shocked. He wasn't embarrassed. He didn't even try to lie. He walked past me, up 2 steps, and sat down on the stairs like we were old friends about to share a secret. He said he'd been following my routines for months. Tracking changes in my mood, behavior, appetite. He knew what time I left the house. When I turned on the porch light. When I washed dishes. When I cried. Yes, he said that. When I cried. According to Marcus, this was his unofficial thesis. A private study in long-form behavioral conditioning. He wanted to see how long it would take before subtle, untraceable disruptions could change a person's patterns. Sleep noise. Light movement. Displaced items. And when that wasn't enough, he admitted he experimented with mild compounds. That white powder? Melatonin. Crushed valerian. A trace of something he wouldn't name. He said it was never meant to harm me, just to make me more pliable. And then he said the scariest thing of all. You were progressing faster than expected. I was too stunned to speak. My hands were shaking, but I still held the bowl like it was some kind of shield. He didn't look angry. He looked proud. Like a student showing off his science fair project. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just walked out of the house and didn't come back. I stayed at a hotel that night, clutching the hidden camera and the bowl in my backpack like they were life rafts. I didn't sleep at all. And I haven't set foot in that house since. The morning after I fled the house, I went straight to the police. I didn't expect them to take me seriously. A tenant with pictures of me? A weird bowl of powder? Sleep disruption? It all sounded like paranoia unless you'd lived it. But the officer I spoke to, Detective Reynolds, actually listened. I showed him everything, the camera footage, the screenshots from Marcus's laptop, the powder in the bowl, which I'd carefully bagged and brought with me. Even the photo of Marcus standing outside the back gate at 3 a.m., from the motion sensor alert I'd ignored weeks earlier. I don't know what detail finally did it, but something changed in Reynolds' face about halfway through. He excused himself, came back with another officer, and asked for my permission to enter the property with a warrant request in progress. I signed everything. They went to the house within the hour. Marcus was home. And when they knocked, he didn't resist. He just opened the door and smiled like he'd been expecting them, too. They brought him in for questioning. I wasn't allowed to be there for that part, obviously. But Reynolds called me later that evening to fill me in. Marcus had a locked closet in his unit. One I hadn't known about because he'd installed a slide bolt on the inside, then painted over it to blend in. Took the cops 10 minutes to get it open. Inside, they found *, a series of notebooks, handwritten logs labeled with my name and the dates. * pages of behavior graphs tracking things like eye movement during conversation, instances of mild confusion, and emotional response to environment shift. * several small bottles with no labels. They were sent off for testing. * a second phone. Password protected. The police are still working on getting into it. * a stack of printed photos. All of me. Sleeping. Cooking. Once, crying on the bathroom floor. That one made me feel physically sick. Reynolds told me they'd found a script tucked behind one of the notebooks. Typed, not printed. It was titled Stage 4, Introduction of Emotional Disruption. The last line? Begin testing how subject reacts to perceived breach of safety. Evaluate threshold for sustained trust breakdown. They're calling it a stalking case with potential experimental abuse. There's no formal charge yet for drugging, pending lab results, but Marcus is being held under psychiatric evaluation and forensics is digging through both of his devices. I asked Reynolds one question. Why didn't he stop? He paused before answering. Then he said, because he thought he was smarter than you. And he wanted to prove it. It's been 5 weeks since Marcus was taken away. They formally charged him last Tuesday with unlawful surveillance, stalking, and tampering with personal property. Still waiting on the lab results for the powder. The police warned me that if they find anything toxic or sedative, the charges will escalate fast. But honestly, no charge will undo what he did to me. I'm still staying with a friend. I haven't gone back to the house, not once. The idea of stepping inside makes my chest feel tight. I think about all the nights I slept, unaware he was watching me, studying me, testing me like some lab rat. The worst part is that it worked. He changed me. I used to be independent, sharp, confident. Now I check the locks 3 times before I close my eyes. I flinch when I hear footsteps behind me, even if I'm in a crowd. I bought blackout curtains for a room I'm not even living in anymore. And I haven't slept a full night through since that last conversation on the stairs. They say trauma reshapes the brain. It's true. Marcus turned my home into a maze of psychological traps, and I didn't even realize I was walking right into all of them. I did go back once. Not inside. Just to the curb. I parked across the street and stared at the windows. I tried to imagine it like it used to be, quiet mornings, coffee on the porch, music in the kitchen. But all I could see was him standing at the top of the stairs, smiling. The house is on the market now. I told the agent not to mention anything in the listing. The law says I don't have to. Some other person will live there one day, paint over the memories, install new locks. Maybe they'll feel safe there. I never will. I've started therapy. My sessions are long, quiet, sometimes empty. I cry in most of them. Not because of what Marcus did, but because I let it happen. I let my gut get silenced by logic. I told myself I was overthinking, being paranoid, dramatic. When my body screamed at me to run, I stayed. When my house felt off, I made excuses. When I felt watched, I turned away from the feeling. And I won't ever do that again. They told me he hasn't said a word since the arrest. Not to police, not to the court-appointed psychiatrist, not even to his lawyer. But part of me wonders if that's exactly what he wanted. Silence. Stillness. A final entry for his study. One last test I didn't know I was still taking. But here's the thing. He didn't break me. And I'm not afraid of the dark anymore. Because now, I see it. And I know exactly who to look for in it.